Hello, welcome to Portugal. My name is Manuel.
And my name is Ana Margarida. And we are here to tell you a little bit about Portugal as a destination to move to, at least during this summer season. So, what's some facts about Portugal? Yeah.
In the southwestern corner of Europe, just a few hours away from any of the other European capitals, Portugal attracts visitors from all over the world. Our climate is mild. We have 3,000 hours of sunshine per year and a coastline that stretches for about 850 kilometers with splendid sandy beaches bathed by the Atlantic Ocean. Portugal is the country with the oldest borders in Europe, and we have it all. 9 centuries of history that forged unique cultural heritage, vibrant cities where tradition and modernity blend together in perfect harmony, superb cuisine, fine wines, and hospitable people. And we also have an exceptional range of different landscapes just a short distance away. Portugal is the perfect holiday destination all year round. We have a population of about 10 million inhabitants living in an area of more than 92 square kilometers, what we would consider a middle-sized country for European standards. We are in the Eurozone, so the euro is our currency. And of course, Portuguese is our official language. Regarding our labor markets, fortunately, we are starting to see some positive trends. The unemployment has decreased last year, reaching pre-pandemic levels, and this is also very much due to the tourism sector. In fact, we need you. We have lots of vacancies open in the tourism sector. Our unemployment rate is 6%, slightly below the EU average. Back to you, Anna.
Okay, so just giving you a few facts about the tourism sector in Portugal at the moment. Actually, of course, just like all other countries here represented today, we had a really big impact with the pandemic's negative impact, of course, in the tourism sector. So, but still, in 2020, it still represented 18.7% of our GDP. So it's really a significant part of our economy and nearly 10% of employment, even with the pandemic. So in 2022, so last year, we had nearly 15 million guests, a little bit more than in 2020. So we really felt in 2022 we were recovering from the pandemic. So we had nearly 40% more guests than we had in the previous year. And when we talk about overnight stays, we increased as well quite a lot, 45%. But still, of course, we were still lagging behind the numbers of 2019, which was actually the best year in terms of tourism for Portugal. We were facing an increasing trend since 2015, more or less. And we had come to the top of the main rankings within tourism, and suddenly this pandemic fell on us, and we really had a big shock with all of this. Still, as you can see, the trend is into recovering, and even though this year is a little bit unstable due to the reasons we all know, things are really getting much better. And we are starting to have our tourists back to our place. And during this period, so foreign tourists still represent half of our tourism at the moment, even during this pandemic period. Short breaks are still dominant, so usually the pattern is to have short breaks in Greater Lisbon and in Porto. But of course, we have had as well an increase in tourism for the islands, namely from Portuguese, but not only. As you could see, Where do our tourists come from? Actually, these 50% of our tourists are coming mainly from Europe, of course. And as you can see, many of the countries that we invited to join us today. So we have Spain as our great neighbor. We have lots of tourists from Germany, France, the Netherlands, Scandinavia, Italy, Belgium, Switzerland, and I would move on with and we're talking about in case of Spain more than 1 million visitors each year, and then on the other hand, the UK is really one of our major sources of tourists. So. And then, of course, we have some third countries coming as well, quite very, very present in our tourism. So as you may guess, just to explain you that we really need people speaking languages, and therefore our employers would love to have people with a domain in Spanish, German, French, even Dutch. And so this is why you are very welcome to Portugal as well. So these are some of the most looked after profiles, and for which you will find more than 130 job vacancies here today, more than 130, and with more than 700 vacant positions. So you can have everything in terms of gastronomy, so chefs, chef de partie, commis chef, sous chef, cooks, confectioners. I would read that all, right? Then you have another area also pretty much connected as well to tourism and traveling activities. We have a very strong customer service sector in Portugal, and today we're having a company recruiting specifically for this sector, which is Citel. And here they will have their projects for travel advisors, customer service within traveling and booking accommodation as well. And then, of course, we will have the traditional profiles, waiters, bartenders, several vacancies, hotel receptionists, night auditors, tourist entertainers, kitchen stewards, room service, housekeeping, all of this that you can see in the job section as well. These are only a few of the recruiting companies here today from Portugal. We could add a few, but they didn't fit the slide. So this is why. So today we're having 25 companies with us. Most of them are having interesting job vacancies you can apply to. So, and one important thing is to say that they are really representing almost all of the country. This year, for instance, we don't have representatives from the islands, but we do have companies from the north of Portugal, from the center, in the Greater Lisbon area, in the Alentejo, and in the Algarve. So it's really very diversified. And I think that's time for you to speak, Manuel.
Thank you, Anna. After this overview of the tourism sector in Portugal, we will move on to some information about the working conditions, particularly regarding the wage references. So our minimum monthly wage is 705 euros since this year. It has been increasing in recent years. And the average monthly earnings in the whole labor market, taking into account all levels of qualification and experience, are around 1,190 euros per month. It's important that you bear in mind that we are usually paid the equivalent to 14 months per year, because besides the 12 months, we are also entitled by law to a holiday and a Christmas bonus, which are both equivalent to 1 month of wage. Now we have for you some few indicative monthly wage ranges for these work profiles you can see here. You should consider the levels. The levels you could expect during your first 5 years of experience maximum, starting from no experience whatsoever. These are really just a reference. Of course, in a few of these profiles, wage levels could go much higher. For example, an experienced and qualified chef could easily go beyond the 2,000 euros per month. It's also important to bear in mind that in food and beverage activities, tips are common. It are a common practice and become an important part of your monthly earnings. Plus, the meals are very often included at least during work time. In accommodation activities, it may also happen that the employer provides accommodation during your stay, even though you should not take it for granted. Moving on. As a rule, we work 40 hours per week, and by law, you cannot be paid more than 2 hours extra time per working day. There are exceptions, of course, but as far as holidays are concerned, as a rule, you are entitled to 22 days per year. When you have a shorter work contract, you gain the right to 2 days per each month worked. You should also bear in mind that fixed-term contracts in Portugal have to assume the written format and must be signed both by the employer and the worker. Lisbon is the region where you have the highest wage levels in Portugal, but it is also the region with the highest cost of living, and particularly when it comes to accommodation. On the bottom left corner, on the bottom left corner of your screen, you have also some information about social security and taxes. And now for a subject much more interesting than taxes, Ana, can you tell us about why we all should learn Portuguese and how to do it?
Well, actually, probably you don't know, but Portuguese is one of the most spoken languages in the world. We have nearly 260 million speakers around the world. And when we talk about native Portuguese speakers, we're talking about 215 to 220 million speakers. So it's really a big community. And of course, now with the pandemics, the opportunities to learn Portuguese at a distance have increased quite a lot. And of course, you have e-learning possibilities, but you still have on-site possibilities as well. And when we share the presentation, you will have some links in there as well. Because what we would like to tell you is that Camões Institute is the institution responsible for promoting the Portuguese learning language throughout the world. And they have e-learning courses as well available, besides being responsible for coordinating a network of European language centers spread all over the world. And these are coordinated, they are organized in cooperation also with universities and with institutions which are available in your countries. And here you will find in the on-site option, you will find in your country of origin, the places where you would find some Portuguese language center. Then we have as well another public body which promotes online learning of Portuguese. So we have a few websites where you can take a look. So these are free of charge online courses. It's not the case of the Camões Institute's Portuguese courses, but regarding the High Commissioner for Migration's courses, these are free of charge. And of course, there are plenty of other e-learning platforms where you can learn some Portuguese in an informal way. Of course, also more than 30 apps available on the internet where you can find so apps that you can download to your mobile and start learning Portuguese. Just please bear in mind that usually you have plenty of these apps and websites, and even on YouTube videos, which are focused on Brazilian Portuguese. And of course, this is slightly different. Of course, we do understand Brazilian Portuguese, and they do understand us, more or less. But it's still different, okay? Of course, we used to say Brazilian Portuguese has a little bit more of sugar. And just like in France, Spain, the UK, also for the Portuguese language, there is a system of exams so that you can get the certification, the official certification according to the European language framework for languages. But well, let's move on maybe.
Okay, now that you know where and how to learn Portuguese, I'm supposed to perform the difficult task of talking about the rising costs of living in Portugal. Of course, Greater Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve, where most touristic activities are concentrated, are the most critical areas when it comes to finding and renting an apartment or even a bedroom. And it becomes even more critical the closest you get to the summer. What we would suggest you is to get organized with your friends and colleagues to share an apartment. There are also several Facebook groups online where expats offer the sharing of accommodation. Moving on to the next slide. You can also find here some typical prices for food. For instance, a bottle of good quality red wine would cost you no less than €5, and you can buy a large bottle of Coca-Cola for a little bit over the €2 mark. By the end of the month, the supermarket bill for one person should be around €200. Last but not the least, let's talk a bit about entertainment. Here you have some examples of prices regarding entertainment, because we want you to work in Portugal, but we also want you to have a good time. All things considered, it's not that expensive to live in Portugal when you compare to some Central and Nordic European countries. For instance, eating out is way less expensive, but of course, as almost anywhere else, we are also facing a considerable increase in the cost of living. And now some useful links. In this slide, you can find some links if you need to have any extra information about the living costs, about where to find an apartment or a bedroom to rent, about how to get access to healthcare. And you have the Citizen Portal, also available in English, which is actually a gateway or a one-stop shop for all the public services in Portugal. It can be quite useful. Now that we all know a lot about working and living conditions, can you enlighten us the best way to find and apply for a job in Portugal, Lena?
Just sharing with you a few links actually. So of course you can start by the EURES portal. You already know, most likely. Then we have a job bank from the Public Employment Service in Portugal, IEFP Online. Unfortunately, you cannot register directly into this job bank because you will have to live in Portugal first in order for you to get registered, but you can still check on the vacancies and have some information about them. Then you can find a few websites which are quite interesting in terms of job search within the tourism sector. So Tourijobs, Ambitur, Hosco, and Tourilink. These are just a few. I could refer you as well to two websites where you can find job vacancies where you don't need to know the Portuguese language to start with. So Jobs in Lisbon and Job in Porto, you will find plenty of jobs which are not requiring a good command of the Portuguese language to start with, and two of the websites which are strongest in Portugal in terms of job search. Expresso Emprego, connected to a weekly newspaper, and empregosap.pt. Okay. As for applying for a job, regarding applying for a job, I leave you here with a few tips. So we're still a bit traditional in the way we apply, but we are getting more and more into the online media as well. And of course, the presence of LinkedIn, or the presence of Portuguese companies in LinkedIn, is increasing quite a lot, also in the last few years with the pandemic. So you should really invest on your LinkedIn profile as well if you can. But if you are applying to a specific job and they're asking you for a CV, make sure it is short. Maybe not as short as in other countries, but between 1 and 2 pages. And if you're not that experienced, really just 1 page will be enough. The model we use in Portugal, usually we use always the reverse chronological order, or a functional model where you group your experience based on the roles that you have performed. And the infographic model, which is very graphic, very simple to read, is becoming more and more popular among employers as well. If you don't speak Portuguese for some reason, it's preferable that you are completely honest and write a CV in English. In principle, employers, namely within the hospitality and catering sector, will know how to read. It doesn't mean they wouldn't like to have people with Portuguese to start with. And probably you will find out that some of the vacancies that we are sharing today are only written in Portuguese. The employers have preferred it that way. But it doesn't mean they will not take a look at your application if you are sending it in English. They are reading quite well in English. You can still use the Europass CV in Portugal. Employers are still used to it. And due to the recent changes, it has improved quite a lot as well. So you could give it a try. Please also bear in mind, don't forget to include your country's international code number in the phone number. I know this may seem a bit full to try to remember you about this, but believe me, there are many candidates who forget that Portuguese employers are not forced to know the international codes of every country in Europe. So please don't forget to add your international code number. And of course, more and more applications and interviews are held through video conference media. So if you have a Skype account, please add it to your CV. If you have access to Google Meet or Teams account, if you're used to using these tools, maybe you can signal that in your CV, and definitely add your LinkedIn profile as well.
Thank you, Anna. With your tips, I'm sure our job seekers will find a job in Portugal in no time. But before you come to Portugal, there are some things you should consider. Don't forget to bring your ID card or passport. Try to have the working conditions which will be offered to you in written before you travel. Ask your employer to send them by email, or ideally send you the work contract before you come. Mostly, if you decide to come to Portugal for job search, bring with you your certificates, proving experience, education, training, references by your previous employers or former colleagues. It's also important you know the wage payment method and frequency in advance. In Portugal, the most current practice is to pay on a monthly basis by bank transfers. This should be the rule, but check. You should also bring some pocket money with you to cover your expenses until you receive the first wage. Don't forget as well your European health insurance card, and make sure in advance you have accommodation in the area. Some employers will include accommodation in their offer to you, but this is not the rule. If this is not the case, try to find an apartment or bedroom before you move, because namely in the summer, if you go to touristic areas, it can be quite difficult to find a place to stay for reasonable prices. So we can move on. By now, maybe you are wondering how you can reach us and how to be up to date with job opportunities in Portugal. We have a Eurus Portugal webpage, but you can also reach us through social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Just follow us for news, job offers, and general information about working in Portugal.
And in terms of direct contact, of course, you can use this EURES generic mailbox to reach us and ask your questions about living in Portugal. And we also have 2 other services you can use to reach us. So we are there every Friday on the Chat on Fridays in the EURES portal. And we are also making available an online, personalized online service. You have to register beforehand, and our colleagues will get in touch with you to help you out planning your coming to Portugal. So these are the services we have for you, and obrigada, thank you for being there.
Obrigado.
And please join us on the chat. We're still having a few minutes before the event finishes, so you can join us on the EURES Portugal chat or just reach us out in the days to come through these media. Okay, thank you so much. Do we have questions?